He was the first person in American history to ever hijack a plane. He jumped from a commercial aircraft using a parachute, clutching $200,000 and vanished without a trace. Dead or alive, the FBI has been puzzled by his mystery for nearly 40 years. On Wednesday, November 24th, 1971, the eve of Thanksgiving, a mysterious man known as Dan Cooper arrived at the airport. He paid just $20 for a ticket with Northwest Airlines, a flight that would take him from Portland, Oregon to Seattle, Washington. Back in 1971, domestic flights were remarkably lenient. Passengers could buy tickets without providing an ID or any document verifying their identity. Boarding a plane with a gun or even a bomb was shockingly easy. There were no security checks. It was as casual as taking a bus. Though he booked his ticket under the name Dan Cooper, it was almost certainly an alias. He would soon become known by another name, D.B. Cooper. This man was in his mid-40s, dressed sharply in a black suit with a long coat, a crisp white shirt, brown shoes, and a black tie. He carried a suitcase and a small paper bag. Upon boarding the plane, he calmly took a seat at the back, lit a cigarette, and ordered his drink of choice, bourbon. At nearly 3 p.m., the plane took off. Everything seemed normal until Cooper made his next move. He called over the nearest stewardess and handed her a small note. Initially, she assumed he was flirting and slipped the note into her pocket without reading it. But when Cooper noticed her ignoring it, he leaned in and whispered, "I think you should read that note." His unwavering stare convinced her. She read the message, and it was chilling. "I have a bomb here, and I would like you to sit beside me." Terrified but composed, the stewardess took a seat next to Cooper. He opened his suitcase slightly, revealing what appeared to be a bomb. Calmly, he instructed her to write down his demands and take them to the captain. His conditions were clear. 1. $200,000 in a small backpack by 5 p.m. 2. A fuel truck to refuel the plane upon landing. 3. 4 parachutes. Cooper's plan became obvious. The $200,000 were worth nearly $1.25 million in today's money. The fuel truck would ensure the plane could take off again, and the 4 parachutes hinted at a calculated strategy. He didn't want the authorities to tamper with them. The FBI would suspect he might force some of the crew to jump with him, making them reluctant to interfere. The stewardess delivered his demands to the captain, who relayed them to Northwest Airlines and the American authorities. Returning to Cooper, she found him still smoking and sipping his bourbon, appearing unnervingly calm. She informed him that his demands had been forwarded, and the plane would not land until they were met. As the plane approached Seattle, the captain circled the airport at low speed for nearly 3 hours, giving authorities time to prepare Cooper's ransom and parachutes. The passengers were kept unaware of the situation, with the captain vaguely announcing a delay due to a minor issue at the airport. Eventually, as darkness settled in, the plane was granted permission to land. Cooper demanded that the aircraft park in a remote section of the airport and that the windows remain closed, fearing an FBI sniper might try to take him out. Every detail seemed to be part of his meticulous plan. When the plane touched down, his demands were met. $200,000 in cash, 4 parachutes, and a fully refueled plane. Cooper allowed the passengers to disembark but kept the crew on board. His next instructions were precise. The pilot was to take off once more, heading for Mexico City, but at an altitude of 10,000 feet with the landing gear down. The American authorities discreetly sent 2 fighter jets to shadow the plane, hoping to track Cooper's escape. Cooper, aware of this possibility, ordered the stewardesses to join the pilot in the cockpit, leaving him alone. Not long after, the cockpit received an alert. Someone had opened the rear staircase of the aircraft. The plane, a Boeing 727, was one of the few with a rear stairway that could be deployed mid-flight. When the crew later checked, they found the staircase open. Cooper was gone. He had leapt into the night with 2 parachutes, leaving behind the bomb suitcase and his black tie. His jump point was somewhere over the dense forests between Seattle and Reno, Nevada. And just like that, D.B. Cooper disappeared. The plane landed safely, and the FBI immediately began searching for any trace of the hijacker. Their only clue was Cooper's black tie, left behind in the cabin. Modern DNA testing would later analyze the tie, but in 1971, such technology didn't exist. A massive search effort began, with FBI agents combing through the forest where they believed Cooper might have landed. But there was nothing. No body, no parachute, no money. It was as though he had evaporated into thin air. Based on descriptions from the stewardesses, who had spent the most time with him, a detailed sketch was created. According to them, Cooper was around 6 feet 1 inch tall, weighing roughly 80 kilograms and in his mid-40s. But that sketch was only a starting point. As the investigation deepened, the legend of D.B. Cooper was only just beginning. He had brown eyes, a hoarse voice, and slurred speech, but his choice of words was sharp, intelligent. If you're wondering whether Cooper had an accomplice, the FBI quickly ruled out that possibility. The pilot confirmed that Cooper alone chose the flight route after taking off from Seattle. Before handing Cooper the money, the FBI recorded the serial numbers on every bill, $200,000 in $20 notes. This meant that if Cooper ever tried to spend the cash, they'd know. Nearly a decade later, in 1980, a young boy playing by the Columbia River made an astonishing discovery. While digging in the sand, he unearthed 3 bundles of rotting money, $20 bills, totaling around $5,800. The FBI confirmed the money matched the ransom Cooper had taken. The boy, just 8 years old, was camping with his father in an area known as Tina Bar. But the location raised even more questions. It was outside the suspected drop zone. Some believed Cooper buried the money. Others argued it must have drifted downstream. But one thing was certain: the mystery had only deepened. In the year following the hijacking, 1972, a flood of false leads and bogus suspects overwhelmed investigators. Over 5 years, the suspect list ballooned to 800 names before being narrowed to just 24. Yet none provided a definitive answer. Fearing that Cooper's crime would become legally unenforceable due to the 5-year statute of limitations, the FBI charged him with blackmail, a crime that never expires. This meant Cooper could still be prosecuted decades later. But even with the charge, the FBI remained empty-handed. Among the top suspects was Richard Floyd McCoy. In April 1972, just 4 months after Cooper's heist, McCoy hijacked another Boeing 727. His tactics were strikingly similar. He handed a note to a stewardess, demanded a ransom, though only $500,000 this time, and used 4 parachutes, escaping through the rear staircase. But McCoy was far from perfect. He left behind his handwritten notes and fingerprints, leading to his arrest within 2 days. Sentenced to 45 years for hijacking, he was immediately suspected of being D.B. Cooper. But the FBI ruled him out. Witnesses who had seen Cooper denied McCoy was the same man. Moreover, McCoy's airtight alibi, he was with his family in Utah celebrating Thanksgiving the day after Cooper's heist, cleared him. Then there was Dwayne Weber. On his deathbed in 1995, Weber whispered to his wife, "I'm Dan Cooper." Shocked, she recalled strange clues, nightmares of leaving evidence on a plane, a knee injury he claimed came from a jump, and even scribbled notes about Cooper in his books. He had once taken her to Tina Bar, the very place where the boy had found the money. More curiously, she discovered an old Northwest Airlines ticket among his belongings. Weber was a World War II paratrooper with a criminal record for robbery and forgery. The FBI investigated but found no hard evidence connecting Weber to Cooper. Finally, there was Kenneth Christensen. In 2003, his brother Lyle watched a documentary on D.B. Cooper and became convinced Kenneth was the hijacker. Kenneth, who had worked for Northwest Airlines, knew the plane's operations intimately. He was a smoker, preferred bourbon, just like Cooper, and bought a home shortly after the hijacking. When a photo of Kenneth was shown to one of the stewardesses from the flight, she was stunned by the resemblance. But despite these promising leads, the FBI dismissed Kenneth as a suspect because of his height. It didn't match Cooper's description, and so the hunt for D.B. Cooper continued, a puzzle with missing pieces and suspects that seemed to fit, until they didn't. Kenneth Christensen's story seemed convincing until it wasn't. Despite his background as an ex-soldier and his expertise with parachutes, the FBI dismissed him. They reasoned that if Kenneth were truly D.B. Cooper, he would have chosen the best parachute among the 4 he requested. Instead, Cooper had picked the worst, an unstable, non-steerable model, a choice no expert would make. The 4th and final suspect was Robert Rackstraw, a former helicopter pilot and Vietnam War veteran. With training in explosives and parachuting, he had a profile that matched Cooper's daring feat. Fired from the Army for misconduct, unemployed, and seeking revenge, Rackstraw seemed to have motive and skill. When questioned by journalists, he played coy, neither confirming nor denying he was Cooper. At one point, he even hinted he knew the truth, but refused to reveal it. Yet, for all the speculation, the FBI couldn't make the charges stick. In 2016, they officially closed the case. But theories continued to swirl. One came from Larry Carr, a high-ranking FBI agent. Carr suggested that Cooper never survived the jump. Initially, the FBI believed Cooper was a skilled paratrooper, but Carr's analysis shattered that myth. Cooper chose the worst parachute, wore loafers, and jumped into a freezing storm over thick forests. To Carr, this was not the plan of an expert. It was suicide. Yet no trace of Cooper's body was ever found. The river theory gained traction. 3 bundles of ransom cash were found miles away in Tena Bar. They were believed to have drifted down the river. But why only those 3? And why hadn't the other money surfaced? One theory suggested that those 3 bundles accidentally escaped the suitcase while Cooper drowned. The river, which connected to the Columbia River and eventually the Pacific Ocean, could have swallowed him whole. Then there was the tie Cooper left behind. Years later, with new technology, the FBI discovered rare industrial chemicals on it, substances used in Boeing's aircraft manufacturing. Did this mean Cooper worked for Boeing, or was it just another dead end? After 45 years, the FBI had nothing left to investigate. In 2016, they shut the case for good. D.B. Cooper's disappearance remains one of America's greatest unsolved mysteries, a legend of a man who fell from the sky and vanished into history. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe our channel.